Welcome to the Bookies Plus weekly betting show where you will get free NFL picks for week 3 from our gambling experts. Now, you can also find the free picks at bookies.com/picks. Not only do we have free NFL picks, got you covered pretty much any sport that you want to wager on. And remember, new episode every week, Thursday, on this channel you're watching right now. This week we'll have picks from Bill Speros, a senior betting analyst at bookies.com. You got Adam, the ATM Thompson, one of the nation's premier handicappers, hits more than 60% of his NFL picks over the last 3 years. You got Nick the Whalen, NBA, NFL, you want from RotoWire, VSiN, and DraftKings, and I am Jim Coventry, and we are ready to get to some picks. We're going to start out, Bill and myself, like the Rams. So, Bill, let us know why you like the Rams plus 3.5 against the Eagles in this one.
This is the game of the week for sure. The NFL dropped the ball not putting this one at 425. Instead, we get the Bears and Cowboys. That was a whiff. Major whiff. This was the most compelling game the Eagles played last postseason. The Rams actually were in it until the final play. It was a sloppy track, a lot of snow, a lot of cold, a lot of wind. The Rams head east. There's a lot of reasons to like the Eagles here, but the 3.5 I feel really good about. This is going to be a close game. The Rams, I think, the Eagles have played 2 very emotional games so far. They had their opener at home. They got the rings. They toughed it out against the Cowboys. Then they played another Super Bowl in Kansas City. You can't sustain that kind of. They have an iron schedule this year, and it's tough to sustain against, especially a team here. It's pretty healthy, the Rams, and very well coached. And I just think that they're poised here to perhaps pull off an upset win outright, if not cover this line.
Yeah, and exactly the way I see it, Bill, they can win this outright. But, man, to get that 3 and a hook, that hook is amazing in this line. Yeah. Now, when we look at this game, the defensive coordinator, Vic Fangio, what does he want to do? He wants to keep everything in front of them. They don't want to give up explosive plays. He's built a coaching career around them. And we saw in that playoff game last year, underneath, it was Nakua just ripping them underneath because they give you that. Well, now they had Devontae Adams in the mix, and Adams started last week to build some chemistry with Stafford. Remember, they didn't have a lot of preseason reps because of Stafford's back injury. But with those 2 working short and intermediate, we know the Eagles already have a big question at second corner. They got major questions at safety. This is going to be slice and dice underneath all day long for Sean McVay. Other side of the ball, look, the Eagles just won't throw the ball downfield. They're facing stacked boxes with 8 men 33% of the time. And there's no room to run, and Hurts isn't bailing them out, and the offensive coordinator's doing no favors. Since they won 2 games, they don't think they're in panic mode. They should be. Everything Bill said, spot on with the emotions. That said, look, I'm going to repeat what Bill said. The Rams can win this outright, but give me 3 and a hook, and I'll take that all day long. Adam, you're going to talk some little Daniel Jones, a little Indianapolis Colts, 2 crazy big games to start the season. You like them this week, minus 3.5. Over Tennessee on the road. Tell us about it.
Yeah, I was definitely skeptical to start the season, but I wouldn't say I'm an all-in believer at this point.
Audio quality. I'm going to shift back, bounce in. I'm going to get Nick's pick. Your audio quality, we got to get that fixed, and we'll come back on you. We're going to bounce to Nick real quick. Nick, Kansas City, a little rough start. Giants are playing at home Sunday Night Football. Giants are getting 6.5 points. Tell us why you like the Giants here.
Well, Jim, I like the Giants because I don't like what I'm seeing out of the Kansas City Chiefs. It's not so much a vote of confidence in the New York Giants, who did get their offense going, but we've now seen one terrible and one extremely good offensive performance from New York. And so much of that was passing based. So much of it was moonball based. Of course, in week 2, I think we had 3 completed passes of at least 48 yards for Russell Wilson in that game. I think it's easy to look at, how easy he made it look in week 2 and say, oh, that could be sustainable. I don't know if that's necessarily going to be the case. If I could say one thing positive about the Chiefs, it's that the defense looked a lot better in week 2 in a tough matchup against Philly than it did over in Sao Paulo in week 1. But look, I don't think the Chiefs lose this game, Jim. I don't think the sky is completely falling. We come out of this with the Chiefs 0-3. They're facing the Baltimore Ravens, by the way, at Arrowhead in week 4. So if we get to that scenario, we will be in an all-time panic. But I think the Giants keep this close because that's what the Chiefs do. The Chiefs keep every game close at this point. We have a 20-plus game sample now dating back to the start of last season, even before that, if you want to keep going, of this team just not pulling away. You think back to some of their quote-unquote easy games last year. They blew out the Cleveland Browns 21-7 in a game where the Browns turned it over 6 times, and they still only won that game over the Browns by 2 touchdowns. They needed a last-second heroic just to beat the Carolina Panthers by 3 points last season. I think the Giants are a competent enough operation. I think you have a good defensive line. You have an okay quarterback. You have playmakers that they'll challenge the Chiefs, and the Chiefs just don't run away from teams. The Giants' defense is good enough that the Chiefs aren't getting 30-plus. That's not what they do. I mean, they've scored 30-plus one time in the last calendar year. That was in the playoff game against the Buffalo Bills. So I think Kansas City takes care of business, but this is like a 23-17 type of game to me. So give me the Giants to cover.
Adam, let's get back to that Colts pick. You like -3.5 at the Tennessee Titans.
Yep. How do I sound now? Better?
Much better. Thank you.
Much better. Those damn Apple products, you just can't trust them. Anyway.
They're like that company's phony. Stay away from
Exactly, fraudulent. I'm not all in on the Colts yet this season, but they have impressed me. I mean, they continue to get it done. I'm more unimpressed by everything Tennessee's done. I mean, they are competitive to an extent, but they rank dead last in yards. They rank 30th in points. They rank dead last, I think, in sacks allowed. They have the most penalties of any team in the league. So not only do they not have the personnel, they're just not playing well either. And, everything Indy's doing is working. They haven't punted through 2 games. They're averaging 5.5 yards per carry. They got Jonathan Taylor really involved last game. He went off. I think they can do that again. I think Tennessee, this is Indy's first road game of the year. And, Daniel Jones, not a great road quarterback historically, but most of those games he was under center for the New York Football Giants. So I'll give him a pass here. I think he's surrounded by better talent. And at Tennessee, only 3.5. I think that's too small of a number against the worst team in the league.
Danny Dimes is dropping $100 bills in the field the last couple of games. It's been fun to watch. Hopefully that continues. It's been fun to see it. We'll see what goes on there. I love the call on that one, Adam Thompson. So usually in these shows, we have a lot of repeat over picks, and we did have Bill and myself. We don't have another repeat the rest of the way, so there's a lot of variety coming in the show for everybody. We're in round 2 now. Bill, New England Patriots getting 1.5 points against the Pittsburgh Steelers. Tell us why you like New England here.
Look, I could go on and on about how Pittsburgh couldn't stop the run last week and how the Patriots were able to run the ball, or how Seattle had a bunch of open dink and dunks, which is what the Patriots do. But Drake May became a Jedi last week. He's no longer a Padawan. He is a Jedi. So I want to say, may the force be with you, because the Patriots now have a big boy at quarterback. He dropped his knickers. Now he has long pants. He can shave. And the force may be with you against Pittsburgh in week 3.
We could put a little sharp edge on that, and you can use that on the defenders that are coming after him as well. I kind of like that. I love the force call there. Bill Speros bringing the heat today. We are going to move next to Adam Thompson. Adam, Minnesota Vikings. We'll have a backup quarterback, Carson Wentz, in there, hoping to get left tackle Christian Darrisaw back. He's practicing a little bit. Ryan Kelly, the center, had a concussion last week. Hopefully we can get him. But anyway, that said, Vikings are laying 2.5 to the Bengals, who are also playing a backup quarterback. Tell us why you like the Vikings, sir.
Yep, and it's -2.5 in some spots, -3 in other spots. So if you can find the 2.5, grab that. And yeah, obviously the O-line needs some help because they're hurting in Minnesota. But the defensive backfield should be better this week. Okudah should be back from his concussion. Harrison Smith, I think, is going to be back. He's missed 2 weeks due to illness, family reasons. So hopefully he's feeling better. They're going to need him in this game because since he has the best wide receiver, probably trio or at least duo. One of the top 3 or 5 in the league. And Jake Browning, he's a capable quarterback, but he's in front of an incapable line, as anybody who's watched Joe Burrow over the last 6 years would know. So, and Minnesota likes to bring the heat. They have a complicated defense. They're going to confuse a first-time starter of this season. We saw what happens when Browning went into the game last week. He led them to a win despite 3 picks. So, if he, over 0.5 INTs, I don't even know what that prop is. I haven't even looked at it yet, but it sounds like a good one for Jake Browning. But yeah, I think, if Carson Wentz, if this Cincy defense can be gashed by Joe Flacco and Trevor Lawrence, I think Carson Wentz can do it. He has the weapons around him. And Jordan Mason, I'm fine with him over Aaron Jones. I think he's proven that he can be that guy too. So not a huge drop off at this point in Aaron Jones's career. So Vikings minus 2.5 at home against Jake Browning's Bengals. I like that one.
Next, Nick's going to tell us a little Green Bay Cleveland with the under. Going to see some Micah Parsons again. Hopefully that snap share gets up near 100. Can't wait to see that. Nick Whalen, tell us about this game, why you like the under.
So I like the under 42.5. I also like the Browns plus 8.5. Guys, I was kind of waffling back and forth on which one I wanted to really highlight here, but we'll go with the under 42.5. We have two very good defenses here, particularly against the run. And, Green Bay is off to, a borderline historic start in that regard, holding Detroit to its worst offensive game since 2021, holding Washington to its worst offensive game since 2022. I look at this Browns team and, I think you take a look at the final score last week and you think, oh, they just got pummeled by the Baltimore Ravens. That was not really the case. This game was not a blowout until late in the third quarter. I thought the Browns defense showed up about as well as you could expect. The levee, of course, inevitably broke as it's going to against Lamar Jackson and company. But Derrick Henry had 5 carries for 5 yards at the half and had one of the worst games of his entire career last week. And look, the Packers, for as impressive as they've been these first couple of weeks, I think most of what they're doing is on the defensive end. The running game, the volume has been there for Josh Jacobs. I believe he's up to 41 carries in these first 2 games, but he's barely getting to 3.5 yards per carry. Not a lot of explosives on the ground. I don't think those are going to be there this week for the Packers. But what Green Bay wants to do is get up early and just kind of run away and hide. That was their strategy last season. That's been the strategy through these first 2 weeks. Low volume passing in the second half. So I think they could accomplish that. I think they could take an early lead in this game, even if they're only up 7, up 10. This is a team that's more than comfortable putting the ball in the hands of Josh Jacobs to salt things away. I mean, guys, Packers-Lions went under this number in week 1. The Lions just put up 52 on the Chicago Bears last week. So I think we see this Green Bay offense struggle in a way that maybe we haven't seen so far this season. I think the Browns will be ready defensively. I don't think we get a lot of points.
You'll come in great here as long as Flacco doesn't throw 3 pick sixes, and you'll be in great shape. Let's hope that doesn't happen. I don't want to see that. I like Joe Flacco. All right, I'm going to go next with the Seattle Seahawks -7 against New Orleans. New Orleans played their first 2 games at home, and that really helped them. Arizona, a little sluggish out the gate in week 1, covered that one. 49ers, all kinds of beat up, but that was a close game throughout. This is a different beast going into Seattle. Seattle, Mike McDonald coaches that defense, and you're beginning to see, you saw it late last year, when they would play a bad offense, McDonald was throwing the looks at them that those offenses couldn't move the football. And that's what's going to happen here. Spencer Rattler, this is going to be one where he is going to struggle. It's going to be ugly upon ugly. So that's the first thing. Second of all, that New Orleans defense, again, at home, they overachieved a bit. They do not have a lot of talent in their secondary, really across the board. It's a talent devoid defense. So Seattle may not have a world breaker offense, but at home and with excellent field position probably throughout this game, this is one their defense is going to pull it away. They'll stumble, Seattle will, into 17 to 20 points. Maybe a little more. I just don't see New Orleans being able to sustain much, and there could be a turnover for 6 points as well in this one. So, yeah, the Seahawks at home, don't trust what you've seen from the Saints so far. That gets us to round 3. We're going to start out with Bill. Jacksonville Jaguars playing at home against Houston, coming off a short week playing that Monday night. You like the Jaguars plus 1.5 on the home field here.
Yeah, I'm buying the dip here. I'm usually a big fan of teams that lose Monday night games the way the Texans lost, sort of bouncing back. But I think there's some problems in Houston this year that we didn't expect. I'm no fan of the Jaguars, but what I do like is a team playing indoors, having to go to 84 and 68% humidity in Jacksonville on Sunday. Playing in a climate-controlled environment in Houston. I've seen a lot of teams, including a Patriots team that went on to win a Super Bowl, go into Jacksonville in September and just literally and figuratively melt down. And, I'm kind of sensing something like that for the Texans on Sunday. And I think that you might see a little surprise from Travis Hunter. I think we might get a little bit more from him. The Texans have sort of, they had to unload the playbook just to lose to Tampa. And, they foolishly scored with too much time left on the clock, something I noted in real time on social media, by the way. So I'm not feeling it this year with the Texans. I'm not feeling it with the Jaguars, but that weather forecast falls right into their lap. And this is a weather game. And I'm going to preach this till they put me out to pasture, but there are early season weather games in Florida. We have another one in Tampa this week with the Jets, another team that's going to implode in the heat down here. So that's something to consider if you're going to wager.
No question on that one. I think it's commonly misunderstood the level of humidity we get in Florida. We see teams go out there and wilt year after year, and often we don't learn the lesson that, but it is intense, especially in the second half of those games. So as always, Bill Speros, great analysis on that one. Adam, so the Sunday night game that Nick talked about, NFL gave us a stinker, the New York Giants playing home. They didn't give us a stinker on Monday night. Detroit at Baltimore, and you're going to tell us about this game and why you like the Lions getting a handful plus 5.5 points here.
Yeah, 5.5 seems like a big number for an offense that just scored 52 points the previous week. Like they got, I think they got a kind of look in the mirror game in week 1, kind of embarrassed a little bit in Green Bay, turned it around against the Chicago team that was obviously just kind of overmatched and on their way to haplessness yet again. Sorry, Jim. But I don't think there's any reason Detroit can't keep scoring here. I mean, Baltimore, they gave up 41 in week 1. They're 30th in the league in yards allowed. And sometimes you think, after scoring 52, they're not going to score 35 plus again. But with Dan Campbell as the coach, when they win their prior game by 11 points or more, they've covered 16 out of 20 instances covered. So that's 80% cover rate. They're top 10 defensively as well. So I think they can keep scoring. We saw what the Browns did to this defense. I don't think Detroit's quite at that level, but they're an aggressive defense. They have playmakers, and I think they can at least hang and even backdoor cover on this one. I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility either. We saw what Buffalo did in the fourth quarter against Baltimore. I think Detroit has the chops to hang.
Yeah, I can't wait to watch this game, and regardless of who wins, just want entertaining. But taking the points, always a good way to go in a game with two heavyweights going there. Nick, we're going to talk about the same game, take different angles on it. We have another one between the Bears and the Cowboys. You like the point spread in this one. Tell us why you like the Cowboys minus 1.5.
Yeah, I mean, this feels like a full-on trap, Jim, with how the Chicago Bears have looked so far, with just the sentiment around the Chicago Bears. And, I know Dallas is sitting at 1-1, very lucky to escape last week, could very well be 0-2, but I'm surprised that we are seeing the Bears as, 1.5 point favorites at certain books right now. We have something interesting developing here. Like the Bears are 1.5 point home favorites at FanDuel. Dallas is a 1.5 point road favorite at DraftKings, something you don't see very often these days. So market's a little bit split here. I love the Dallas Cowboys in this spot. I know they're traveling. I know we might even get a little bit of rain on Sunday in Chicago, but I'm with you, Jim. I know where you're going on the total here. There's a reason it's climbed north of 50. I don't think either of these defenses are very good. And if you want to say that that's a wash, with the pieces missing on both sides, the Bears especially are hurting in their secondary. Jalen Johnson likely done for the year. I don't think we see Kyler Gordon this week. Nope. If you want to say, okay, both defenses are bad, well, we'll call that a wash. I trust Dak Prescott much more than I do Caleb Williams right now. I need proof of concept that Ben Johnson is actually going to turn Caleb Williams into a plus starting quarterback in the NFL. And look, I don't think Caleb was a total disaster in week 2 against Detroit. I think that game got away from them on the defensive end, but we see the firepower with the Dallas Cowboys. I mean, this is a team that has 2 elite receivers. The running game has been significantly more effective than we expected so far this season. I like this as a spot for Dallas to move to 2-1, head out on the road. Dak Prescott, by the way, 39-12 straight up against sub 500 teams in his career. So I think they attack those weaknesses on the Bears defense. I think we get a lot of points, but I think we get more on the Dallas side.
Going into the season, I like the over on this game. I told people a month ago, don't expect much from the Bears in week 1 and 2. They're playing Minnesota. Outstandingly coached defense. Week 2, they're playing Detroit. Detroit has a lot of talent on that defense, and the Bears are installing a brand new system. There was very little chance the first 2 weeks were going to be good. But I tell you what, Ben Johnson has an opportunity here. He needs to instill confidence in his offense. And who better to do that against Dallas? You're not going to get a pass rush. The slot corner, Deron Bland, was out last week. We'll see if he makes it back. I don't really care if he does or doesn't. Trevon Diggs is banged up already. This defense is Swiss cheese. And Ben Johnson has every opportunity to take out the playbook and take his favorite items and smash the Cowboys with them. But the Cowboys, this is the good news. The Cowboys do want to run the ball. But we saw it last week. As soon as a team gets ahead of them, which doesn't take much to do, like Nick said, that passing game arsenal is coming out. Prescott, Lamb, Pickens, Jake Ferguson. The Bears have no answers for that. Like you said, Jalen Johnson done for the year. We don't expect Kyler Gordon. Linebacker play's been horrible. There's no pass rush there. They have Sweat, but they're not getting anything out of them. So this game is going to be a track meet. I expect it to hit 60, and we're getting at 50.5. So I definitely love that. Let's go with some final closing thoughts for week 3. Bill Speros, what do you got for us?
Yoda said, favorites and parlays, bet them season this. Last year continues. Favorites are 24-8 straight up this year already. That's 75% for those of you educated in the Arlington, Massachusetts public school system like I was. Last year, NFL favorites were 70% straight up. This trend will not continue, but it's certainly worth riding out until it stops.
Adam Thompson, closing thought.
I was looking at some stats for something else, and it's interesting. The league is going conservative. It's playing for field goals instead of touchdowns lately. It's playing for possession. It's playing for don't turn the ball over. I looked at the turnover percentage this season on drives is 9.3%. That is way, way, way under the second lowest total in the history of the league, recorded league. The second lowest ever was 10.7%. This is 9.3% this year. Yards per drive has dropped, but points per drive has risen because A, the kickoff, which we talked about, the kickoff got moved up. B, every kicker can hit within 60 yards. So you basically need 1 to 2 first downs and you're in field goal range for a lot of these teams. And we're seeing the effects of this. Teams are scoring on 41.3% of drives. That is crushing the all-time record of 39%. So teams are scoring more often, but they're scoring field goals more often than ever. But points overall, the same as last year. So all said and done, all these kicks are just equally more points.
Nick Whalen, what's your closing thought?
You know, we haven't really dug in on the backup quarterback raid that is coming to week 3 in the NFL this week. There's an interesting number that I was digging into. Like, this is the most backup quarterbacks likely that we'll have in a given week, especially early in the season since 2019, when we had 6 backup quarterbacks starting in week 3 of that season. Those 6 backup quarterbacks ended up going 5-1 against the number in those games. So something to be aware of if you haven't done your homework quite yet this week. Obviously, Jake Browning in for Joe Burrow, Carson Wentz in for JJ McCarthy. We think Mac Jones makes another start for Brock Purdy. We will see. Purdy was getting some work in at practice earlier today. So the Niners may go back to Purdy, but I still think it's more likely we see one more game of Mac Jones. Looking very likely that Marcus Mariota will get at least one start in place of Jaden Daniels. And then, of course, Tyrod Taylor taken over for Justin Fields. So it's another element. It's already hard enough to handicap these games, guys, when you have the starting quarterbacks out there. And, now a good chunk of the league dealing with backup quarterbacks. And we even have a backup on backup bowl in Cincinnati, Minnesota.
All right, everybody. It's been a Bookies Plus weekly gambling show. Make sure you're bookmarking bookies.com/picks so you can check out all of our free picks. Remember, not just football, all sports. We will be back with another show next week. Everybody, be profitable and have a great week 3.